My name is Tunan. I'm a learning and interactive designer. I created a hypothesis of a new multimedia principle with a new concept of text presentation. I have to admit, every time I say it, it makes me feel like a big deal. But core of this whole thesis is actually about this hypothesis, which is still under very very early stage, but maybe promising. So for those who don't really familiar with multimedia principle, it's a theory created by Richard E. Mayer, states that we learn better with words and image together than words alone. But have you ever wondering, what if the words are the pictures? So this is actually not a new format. I'm sure you have seen examples like this. But from the learning perspective, designing the words to something more fancier did read like attention level, but it's not actually a really good way to improve retention. Because if you really learn about memory system and how it works, the better way to improve retention is to create meaningful stimuli that can activate the deeper level of cognitive process. And by combining this with the multimedia principle, I would dare to say that it should be meaningful visual stimuli. So let's take a moment and read this sentence. So what if we redesign the text by matching the important content with a layer of visual design to create meaningful visual stimuli that can better help you to memorize the information? So you may ask, why not just this and this? Because this is still separate processing, which is with the text and image separately, and that is like something naturally we do every day, which is make it harder to really activate the deeper level of process. But from this to this, we may have a better chance. And another interesting thing is this example is actually from a 700-word article about internal wave. And this is the only picture in that article. So this image might be effective, but the limitation of the number of images you can use actually filter out many details. But with this kind of format, you can kind of highlight the important details individually by creating visual cues that can help you memorize. So this is something I created. I call it content-oriented visualized text presentation. I know it's a really complicated name, and you can also say like COVTP is pretty catchy. And it's basically about these 3 steps as I mentioned. And I want to push it a little bit further, so I did a lot of research. Most of them are focusing on memory performance and combined with the study of different examples in text design. And I came up with 4 design components. Directionality and the environment cues is something more original from me. So let's see more example about them. So directionality is actually by reorganizing the direction of the text to create spatial or structural visual cues. So it can be applied to learning materials that include shapes, location, process, relationship, and even movement and behavior. And the environment cue is that by redesigning the background of the text to visually present environmental, emotional, or visual related settings. And when you get into the design, and you get a little bit crazy. So like this is something I created. And what's interesting is I gave it to some of the elementary students I tutored. And they kept asking this question: why does this look like this? So it seems like they are not just reading, they are also thinking and asking questions. I also conduct a quantitative experiment to try to explore if this is actually something. So thanks to Professor U.F. Berkner, who gave me a huge help on designing this experiment. And I did end up found some really interesting result that the COVP may actually have a very positive effect on improved retention, especially on new information. And if you want to learn more about this experiment and all the 20 examples I use in this experiment, come to my booth 14. I also have design principles, applications, and more examples. And if these are not enough, which it should be, I also have a totally black poster, and come to my booth and find out why. My name is Tunan, and thank you.